When you look closely at life, you begin to see that everything around you is always in motion. Nothing stays still. Not the trees, not the wind, not even the stone that appears unmoved for centuries. And certainly not the thoughts within your mind. Even silence has rhythm. Even stillness has breath. This is the language of the universe. Constant change, endless transformation. Every moment is a process of unfolding, evolving, reshaping. And yet, many people live as if they can freeze time, as if they can cling to what feels good and make it last forever. That is where the suffering begins, not in change itself, but in our resistance to it. There is something deeply intelligent about this ever-changing flow. It's not random, it's not chaotic. There is an order in this dance, even if we don't always see it. Just like a river doesn't argue with its bends or try to straighten its curves, we too must learn to move with the shape that life takes. Because it will not ask our permission before it moves forward, it never has, and it never will. To fight change is like trying to stop the tide with your bare hands. It will only exhaust you. It will only leave you standing in frustration, soaked in fear and confusion. So what can we do? First, we must stop viewing change as a threat. Many people carry this unspoken fear that if something changes, it must mean something is wrong. But if you really examine it, you will see that change is not your enemy. Change is life's way of speaking to you, guiding you, and sometimes shaking you awake. It is how the universe keeps us from becoming rigid, unconscious, and asleep in patterns that no longer serve our growth. Change is not destruction. It is the path to renewal. Think about the seasons. No tree clings to its leaves when autumn comes. The tree knows that in letting go, space is made for something new to emerge. This is nature's wisdom. And you, being part of this same nature, carry that same wisdom deep within you. You just have to remember it. When your job changes, when relationships shift, when the person you thought you were starts dissolving, these are not signs of collapse. These are signs of movement. Something deeper is happening. Something more aligned is coming forth. But of course, the human mind doesn't like uncertainty. It wants to know. It wants to feel secure. It wants to predict and prepare. So when things begin to change, fear often appears. The fear of loss, the fear of the unknown, the fear of losing control. And yet, every time life has changed for you, if you really reflect, you will see that it has always led you somewhere you needed to go. Maybe not always where you wanted to go, but where you needed to go. Sometimes it leads you through pain, sometimes through stillness, sometimes through beauty. But in each case, it breaks you out of your illusion and invites you to live more honestly. So why do we resist this flow? Because deep down we are attached to comfort, to certainty, to who we believe we are. But attachment is like trying to hold smoke in your hands. The tighter you grip, the more it slips away. Life is not meant to be gripped. It is meant to be lived, and living means moving, changing, becoming. It means allowing yourself to be undone and remade again and again. Every experience, every person, every feeling you encounter is impermanent. This is not something to mourn, this is something to marvel at. It means nothing is fixed. It means you are not stuck. It means even your deepest pain can shift. Even your most limiting beliefs can fall away. Even the version of yourself you thought you had to be can change. What greater freedom could there be? But freedom requires awareness. It requires attention. It requires the courage to see life not as something to master, but as something to participate in fully. And that participation includes honoring change, not just tolerating it, not just surviving it, but understanding it as part of the design. To see it not as chaos, but as choreography. When you begin to trust this dance, something remarkable happens. You stop needing to control every step. You stop needing to predict the next move, and instead, you begin to move with grace, with openness, with curiosity, and in doing so, you return to the rhythm that was always within you. The rhythm of life itself. Everything changes. That is not a curse. That is the promise of life's potential. Pain has a strange way of entering our lives. It rarely knocks politely. It often arrives unannounced, sudden, heavy, and overwhelming. And in those moments when it strikes, whether through loss, failure, betrayal, or disappointment, the first reaction many people have is to push it away, to numb it, escape it, or ask, "Why me?" But pain does not come to punish. It does not come to destroy. Pain comes as a messenger. It carries with it a lesson that cannot be learned through comfort. And if you can learn to listen instead of run, to open instead of close, then pain becomes a profound teacher. We are conditioned to believe that pain is something to avoid at all costs. Society teaches us to constantly seek comfort, pleasure, and convenience. But the irony is, this constant chase often leads to more suffering, because when life inevitably brings discomfort, and it always does, we're left unprepared, unaware, and unwilling to face it. And yet, it is in the heart of discomfort that the real transformation takes place. The fire of pain burns away illusions. It exposes what is false. It shows you what you've been hiding, what you've been denying, and what you truly need to confront within yourself. Think about this. When was the last time you truly changed, really shifted your mindset, your habits, or your way of being? Because everything was going well. Rarely does that happen. Growth is usually born out of challenge. A storm clears the air in ways a sunny day never can. And so, when pain comes, it is not life turning against you. It is life shaking you awake. It is life saying, "Look deeper, pay attention. Something inside you is ready to evolve." But to see pain this way requires a shift in perspective. It means stepping out of the role of the victim and into the role of the observer. It means asking, "What is this pain trying to teach me?" Instead of saying, "This shouldn't be happening." Maybe the pain is telling you to let go of someone you've outgrown. Maybe it's revealing a fear you've been avoiding. Maybe it's pointing to a truth you've been unwilling to accept. Whatever the message is, it's only through listening that you gain the wisdom. If you ignore the pain or cover it up with distraction, the lesson only repeats. There's a quiet strength in those who do not flinch in the face of pain, not because they are immune to suffering, but because they trust that there's meaning in the struggle. They've learned that everything that hurts has the potential to heal, if approached with awareness. This doesn't mean you must enjoy the pain or pretend it doesn't hurt. It means that you allow it to guide you instead of define you. You feel it fully, but you do not drown in it. You carry it, but you do not let it shape your identity. People often ask, "How do I heal?" The answer lies in facing what hurts without resistance. Healing begins the moment you stop running, the moment you sit with what is uncomfortable and allow it to reveal what it needs to show you. Sometimes what it reveals is a wound from long ago. Sometimes it's a limitation you've placed on yourself. And other times, it's simply the realization that what once served you no longer does. In all these cases, pain is not a wall, it's a doorway. What blocks people from walking through that door is fear, the fear of change, the fear of breaking, the fear of not knowing who they'll be on the other side. But that fear is based on the belief that you are not strong enough to hold what you feel. That belief is false. You are not too weak to feel pain. You are simply unfamiliar with the power that emerges when you do. Strength does not come from avoiding what hurts. It comes from surviving it, learning from it, and carrying its wisdom forward. You cannot grow and stay the same. You cannot become more conscious without being challenged. and you cannot step into a new version of yourself without walking through the shadows of your past. Pain is the invitation. You don't have to like the way it arrives. But if you accept the invitation, something beautiful happens. Your heart softens, your mind sharpens, your vision clears, and you begin to realize that pain was never here to punish. It was here to wake you up. So when the next wave of difficulty comes, and it will, don't ask why it's happening to you. Ask what it's trying to reveal through you. Because the moment you stop running from pain is the moment you begin to transform. One of the hardest truths for people to accept is that who they think they are is not fixed. Identity is not permanent. It's not some rigid structure that you define once and carry forever. Yet so many people live as if their identity is carved in stone. They cling to their names, their roles, their stories, their past victories and past traumas, as if these things must define them for life. But just as the body is constantly shedding cells, so too must the mind and the self evolve. What was true for you 10 years ago may no longer hold value today. What you once needed for survival may now be limiting your growth. Identity must be reborn through the courage to let go. Letting go is not about giving up. It's about recognizing that your essence is far more expansive than the labels you wear. You are not just a job title, a relationship status, a background, or a reputation. These are temporary roles, like costumes worn for a particular scene in the play of life. The problem arises when you start believing the costume is your true skin. When that happens, any shift, any change in career, in relationships, in health, in life path, feels like a crisis. Not because you are falling apart, but because the image you built of yourself is cracking. And in that crack, something more authentic is trying to emerge. The ego doesn't like this process. The ego wants certainty. It thrives on control. It attaches itself to familiar patterns, even if those patterns no longer serve you. So when life begins to change, and those attachments are threatened, it panics. It tells you to resist. It whispers that you're losing who you are. But the deeper truth is, you're only losing who you thought you were. And in that loss, you are making space for who you truly are to surface. The letting go of identity is not the end of self. It is the beginning of self-awareness. Look around you. Nature lets go constantly. A snake sheds its skin. The moon disappears every month. Trees lose their leaves every year. And yet, we as humans are often so afraid to release even one thought, one belief, one attachment. We cling not because the thing we're holding onto still nurtures us, but because we've convinced ourselves we'll be nothing without it. That is the illusion. Letting go doesn't make you less. It reveals how much more you've always been. To live fully, you must be willing to die symbolically many times. The version of you who once needed to prove something must die. The version of you who stayed small to be accepted must die. The version of you who thought love had to come through pain must die. Every time you shed an old skin, you return more deeply to your true nature. And the more you do this, the more you stop fearing endings. You begin to see them not as death, but as transformation. But this is not an easy process. It takes honesty. You must be willing to ask difficult questions. What am I holding onto that no longer serves me? What stories about myself have I outgrown? Where am I clinging out of fear rather than trust? These questions can be confronting because they force you to face your inner attachments, the ones that are no longer aligned but still feel familiar. But only when you see them clearly can you release them consciously. You cannot transform what you refuse to examine. This is why awareness is essential. Without awareness, change feels like chaos. With awareness, change becomes a choice. You begin to participate in your own evolution instead of being dragged through it by by external forces. And as you let go, something beautiful happens. A spaciousness appears inside you, a quiet knowing, a presence. You begin to feel lighter not because you have less, but because you've stopped carrying what was never truly yours to begin with. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you are beneath the noise. The letting go is not subtraction, it's clarification. It's a refinement of your energy, your purpose, your truth. You are not here to live inside a box made of expectations. You are here to grow, to change, to express your uniqueness fully. And sometimes that means walking away from who you've been, not because that version was wrong, but because you're ready for something deeper. The real freedom comes when you realize you are allowed to outgrow your past. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to become unfamiliar to those who only knew a previous version of you. What matters most is not how the world sees you, but whether you are living in alignment with your own evolving truth. When you have the courage to let go of who you were, you make space for who you're meant to become. There comes a point in life when you realize that no matter how much effort you put into organizing, controlling, and planning, things often unfold in their own time and way. This realization can be frustrating, especially for those who are used to calculating every step, managing every outcome, and clinging tightly to the illusion that if they just try hard enough, everything will go according to plan. But the deeper you go into understanding life, the clearer it becomes. Real peace begins not when you've mastered control, but when you've learned to trust. Trust begins exactly where control ends. Control feels safe. It gives the mind a sense of power. When we control, we feel like we are reducing uncertainty, avoiding pain, and protecting ourselves from disappointment. But in reality, most of what we try to control is far beyond our reach. We try to control people, their actions, their feelings, their decisions. We try to control outcomes, timelines, opportunities, results. But people are not possessions, and outcomes are not guaranteed. The tighter you grip, the more anxious you become. The more you try to force life, the more resistance you encounter. Eventually, control turns into tension, and tension becomes suffering. The art is not in controlling everything, but in learning how to move wisely through the uncontrollable. To live with presence, not pressure. When something is truly yours, it does not need to be forced. And when something is not meant for you, no amount of effort will make it stay. This is not defeatism, it is maturity. It is understanding that the universe is not here to obey your schedule. It's here to awaken your awareness. Sometimes the delay is the lesson. Sometimes the detour is the direction. There is great strength in surrender, but most people misunderstand what surrender means. They think surrender is passive, like giving up. But true surrender is active trust. It is the conscious choice to stop resisting what is and begin flowing with it instead. This does not mean you stop acting. It means you act from a place of inner clarity, not inner fear. You make decisions, but you release attachment to the result. You take steps forward, but you let go of the obsession with certainty. You do your part, and then you allow life to do its part, even when its timing or form doesn't match your expectations. Some of the most beautiful things in life happen when you stop trying to manipulate the moment, and instead allow it to be what it is. When you stop overthinking every outcome and begin to trust that even if things don't go your way, they may be going a better way. You start to feel a quiet confidence, not because you know exactly what's coming, but because you've accepted that you don't need to. That trust doesn't mean you'll never fall. It means that even if you do, you'll be okay. It means that your foundation is no longer built on fragile plans, but on deep presence. The mind may ask, but what if things go wrong? And that question will appear again and again. But the deeper answer is, things will sometimes go differently, not wrongly. You may lose something only to discover you never needed it. You may be rejected only to be redirected. You may be delayed only to be protected from a path that would have harmed you. And in time, you begin to see what at first seemed like misfortune was actually a greater alignment unfolding. Trust is not blind faith. It's not naive optimism. It's the wisdom that arises from seeing enough of life to understand that your perspective is limited, but life's intelligence is not. When you let go of control, you are not becoming passive. You are stepping into a more spacious way of living, where effort is balanced with ease, and direction is balanced with openness. You begin to see life not as a problem to solve, but as a process to experience. And the more you trust, the more in tune you become with your intuition. The more clearly you begin to hear that quiet voice within the one that is drowned out, when you are too busy forcing and fixing everything. You will still take action, but your actions will be more aligned. You will still pursue goals, but not at the expense of your inner peace. You will still face uncertainty, but with a heart that does not panic, because you've realized that control may give you plans, but only trust will give you freedom. And that freedom is what allows you to breathe fully, to live lightly, and to walk this path with grace. The moment you stop needing to control everything is the moment you begin to feel everything, deeply, authentically, and without fear. In a world that never stops moving, it becomes more important than ever to learn the difference between what is happening outside of us and what is happening within. Everything around us is in motion: the world, the people, the circumstances, the seasons, even the technologies that keep reshaping our daily lives. We are constantly being pulled into this flow of external change. And while this movement is natural and unavoidable, what many overlook is the power and necessity of developing an inner stillness amidst it all. There is a part of you that remains untouched by the noise, by the distractions, by the endless fluctuations of daily life. That part of you is not reactive. It's not shaken by what others say or do. It doesn't get carried away by temporary emotions or shifting conditions. That part of you is silent, clear, and aware. And when you learn to return to it, to rest in it, you begin to discover a kind of peace that is not dependent on what is happening around you. This is the stillness I speak of, not the absence of movement in your life, but the presence of deep inner stability, regardless of what changes externally. Many people believe that to be peaceful, life must be calm. They wait for the perfect circumstances, the job to settle, the relationship to stabilize, the chaos to subside. But life doesn't work that way. It rarely offers long periods of calm. There is always something shifting, something coming, something going. If your inner peace depends on everything being settled outside of you, then peace will always remain distant, just one more change away from disappearing. But there is another way. You can train yourself to find stillness within. You can practice becoming the observer rather than the reactor. You can learn to witness the rise and fall of emotions, the chaos of the mind, the changing of events without becoming lost in them. And when you do this consistently, you'll begin to experience that calm is not something you find. It is something you create. It is not something that life gives you. It is something you bring to life. Just as the eye cannot see itself and the knife cannot cut itself, the awareness within you cannot be shaken by the content it observes. It is always still, but we forget. We become identified with every thought, every mood, every success, every failure. We ride every wave of joy or sorrow as if that wave is who we are. But you are not the wave, you are the ocean. The wave comes and goes, rises and crashes, but the ocean remains deep, vast, and unmoved. This understanding is not just poetic, it is powerful. Because when you live from this place of depth, life's challenges no longer pull you apart. They simply pass through you. This inner stillness is not passive, it is full of intelligence. From this space, decisions are made with clarity instead of urgency. Responses are guided by wisdom instead of emotion. Presence becomes natural instead of forced. And when people encounter you, they sense something different, not someone who is free from difficulty, but someone who is not consumed by it. Someone who moves with life but is not swept away by it. To cultivate this stillness, you must spend time with yourself. Not just with your thoughts, but with your silence. You must disconnect regularly from the noise of the world, the screens, the distractions, the constant stimulation, and return to presence. Whether it's sitting quietly in meditation, walking in nature, or simply breathing consciously in the middle of a busy day, these moments are not escapes. They are your return to center. They remind you that no matter how fast the world spins, you can remain rooted. Stillness is not the absence of movement in your life. It is the mastery of movement within your awareness. It allows you to move through the world with grace, to adapt without losing yourself, to respond without reacting, to live without losing touch with your essence. You become a calm presence in a noisy world, a grounded soul in an age of speed, a light in the middle of storms. And as life continues to change, as it always will, you begin to understand that the goal was never to control the chaos, but to find the calm within it. That everything outside of you may change 1,000 times, but your real strength lies in the one place that remains unchanged. When you live from that place, you are no longer afraid of change. You welcome it, because you know that while everything around you may shift, the stillness within you never has to.